3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone, my name's Maria and I'm joined by John.
Hello.
And we're sitting here today and we're going to talk a little bit about MaidSafe. MaidSafe is, I'm starting to hear a little bit about this and I'm quite curious, but I am by no means have any knowledge of MaidSafe myself. So this is going to be really interesting, John. So you'll be able to tell me anything, but I do need some convincing.
Right, I'll do my best.
Good man. And we have an audience here as well. So there might be some questions out there that we might throw out or you might throw in to John to help me out, because I get quite nervous when I talk about stuff like Bitcoin and MaidSafe, because I can be in the moment and really get an understanding of it, but it's almost like I leave it in that moment, and when I move on, it's all forgotten. So good luck with that one, John. Good luck with that one. So let me just share a little bit about my very naive understanding, although I would say I'm not alone in this, John. I would say that out there, if I was to ask a question, what do you know about MaidSafe, they'd probably respond as I would. So back in the day, we were introduced to the internet, right? And at first I do recall thinking, what's that? That's obviously for technical, nerdy people, and I wasn't particularly fussed about it. Then it sort of got out there and I asked a few questions, and then I found it could do things like tell me things that I don't need to go to the library for now. And eventually I could actually not even have to go to the shop. I could start buying things on it and stuff like that. So it started to do an awful lot of things. And in all honesty, I didn't question it. Once I used it, I got a bit comfortable with it. I didn't question. I certainly wasn't thinking about security. And I would never have said to anybody, I hope you're making this safe. I just went with it. But as time has gone on, we can see some of the, horrendous things that do happen on the internet, but not taking away how amazing it is as well. And there's a lot more folk out there getting more concerned about the security and who's watching it and who owns what data and all that sort of stuff. And my understanding is this MaidSafe thing out there is being worked on and introduced to take some of that away, and also to put some freedom back into us as individuals, so that we can use it freely again. Now, I don't really feel I've put that too well, but does that make any sense?
Well, first thing I'd like to say, I'm not an expert. I'm an enthusiastic follower, and so if I am wrong on anything, anybody out there in internet land, feel free to correct me in the comments or whatever. I'm as happy to learn if I'm wrong on something as anyone else.
I think that's absolutely fair enough.
The second thing was you said the internet it's made an awful lot of things possible. The internet's built in layers, and I believe I heard a quote the other day that said there's 9 layers of protocol to get to you being on Facebook or you going to Sainsbury's.com and doing your shopping. So what we're challenging is, and what MaidSafe is looking to do, is to go deep enough in those layers and build at layer 2 or 3, whereas a lot of what the innovation's being done at the moment is higher up with just things that work same way the internet works for everybody now, but they try and do something different with it. Where that's ended us up is large corporations, Apple, Facebook, Google, controlling a disproportionate amount of our lives, because everything you put on Facebook can decide how many people see it, whether or not it gets taken down. If they want to sell it, they will reserve the right. They now own an Instagram. If any photo that they particularly like, they reserve the right to use that photo without giving you any credit, because they own it.
Right.
So even though you took the photograph and you put it up there, Facebook own it. Facebook say, actually, if we choose to, that's my photograph. Now, They get away with that a lot because there's so much out there. 99.999% of the stuff that's out on Instagram, that never happens. but they reserve the right if they want to say, nah, that's our photo. And
Right.
you could end up with your photo becoming an iconic image to do with something. You had nothing, because you're using their service, because you're using it free of charge.
Right. So generally, sorry, can I just ask you a question there? Generally, then, why would that concern me?
Well, it doesn't when you're just one of millions of people who are using it the way everybody does. But what happens if, through some bizarre turn of events, your photograph gets used to make somebody else an awful lot of money?
Right.
By sell, your photograph is the brilliant thing that means that they can make bucket loads of money selling their thing, and they're using your photo to do that.
Right.
And you're actually making Facebook very rich.
Right.
So, and you've got no comeback. You don't get a penny of that because it's an Instagram photograph and Facebook owned it in the first place.
Right. So can I just summarise
So that's
that?
only one example, but yeah, carry on.
The only reason I want to summarise it, just so that my understanding is clear, because if it isn't, my next questions won't make any sense. So, really, my stuff that I own, right, mine, I took the photo, it's me, I was given this life, I was given this life, and why should other people get paid as a result of things that I have created through the gift of the universe, if you like? So what I am doing at the moment, my relationship with the internet at the moment, is actually saying that I don't own my life.
Yes.
You can actually take my gifts and do what you like, and you can benefit from it, and I might not get anything back.
That's right.
And that almost goes against the law of attraction, really.
That's right. Now that's one scenario. A different scenario, there's been quite a lot of celebrities who have had naked photos of themselves posted all over the internet because they used a private service that's supposed to be only yours, but it got hacked.
Right.
So then criminals have got in, hacked your private account that's only yours.
Yes.
Because it's stored in a central server, so they don't need to get to your actual device. They can come in remotely from elsewhere. Yours is like a honeypot. And they go, well, there's this celebrity naked. Wonderful. We'll hack that, find those photos, and then we can blackmail people. We can then put them on post about the internet. We can ruin people's lives. Now, that should have been their private thing, but because it was stored on a server somewhere, that was then hackable. Because all it is your photo, and you're basically going, here, so whoever you are, look after that for me, will you? Well, if that person's house gets burgled, your photo's gone.
Yes.
So that's another example of why it's wrong. A third one would be all your communications being tracked by GCHQ or the NSA, if you're up to what they see as no good. Now, I'm sure there's a perfectly good argument that that's not a bad thing, that they can follow criminals doing what they want to do, but the problem is they follow everybody.
Yes.
And they'll track everything, and they record everything.
And there is that point there that, we are not a world of criminals. The majority aren't.
Exactly.
And it's almost this creating this thing that...
It changes... it changes the way you behave if you think you're always being watched.
Absolutely.
And it stops you being natural. Just go and look at somewhere like North Korea or somewhere.
Yeah.
The people in the country don't dare say what they really think, and everybody lives in a horrible way because they're underneath a regime that's supposedly always watching them.
Yeah.
And that's becoming, to greater or lesser extent, you can argue how much it's becoming a thing that people worry about, whatever the reality behind all the motives at the moment are. Because the problem with powers like that is, even if people put them there in good faith for the good of the people, it only takes somebody else to be in control and take over those powers, and they can be corrupted and used against the people.
Sure.
So the logical argument is, well, they shouldn't have that power in the first place, and you'll just, that comes with pros and cons, because it means you can't track criminals as easily. And if there are terrorists out there, you haven't got that power. But should you have it? At what cost? Should everybody be watched because one person in a million might do something horrible?
And I think the biggest thing for me there is it discourages good natural behaviour.
Yes.
And there's a lot of talent out there, and there's a lot of good stuff, but people fear sharing that. I mean, we've all been given talents and skills, but people fear sharing that stuff because they don't know if they're allowed to. There's a fear.
Yes.
And really we're missing out, aren't we? If that's what I get from that.
So there's a lot of arguments both ways about a lot of this stuff. But what MadeSafe is looking to do is take it from your relationship with the internet is then not your relationship with Facebook, your relationship with Apple, your relationship with Google, all of which is pretty one-sided for a variety of reasons, not all of which are bad, because some of those things are very convenient and useful. But that is your relationship with what the internet is now, and this is where we've ended up. And there's a lot of things wrong with it, rightly or wrongly, to the upsides of it. The downsides are unavoidable. Advertising, data breaches. We've just heard that Yahoo has been hacked, and in fact we've just heard it was hacked 2 years ago, and millions and millions of email addresses and passwords have been sold on the dark net.
Right.
And that will include politicians. It will include all sorts of people who don't want their private emails leaked to the world. But tough, it's too late. It happened 2 years ago. Your details have been sold.
Yes.
So, MadeSafe is trying to go beneath the basic way that all of your computer and my computer connect to a server somewhere. They're trying to cut out the server, which is, as we were saying with like the private photographs, they're held in a server. What MadeSafe is doing is, instead of having data banks that we all log into, is just joining all our computers together. So my computer will join to your computer, will join to 15 more computers.
Has this got a name for it?
Well, this is what the Safe network is called.
Right, okay.
Now, what MadeSafe actually stands for is massive array of internet disks, which is basically the hard drive in your computer and the hard drive in my computer. Safe access for everyone.
Oh, right, okay.
That's
I
what
didn't
it stands
know that.
for.
Did you know that?
I remember the safe part, but not the main.
So that's what that's the thinking behind it, and the tagline is security, privacy, and freedom.
So if I was to ask you, well, you've kind of have just done it there: security, privacy, and freedom. So for the average person that uses the internet for a bit of shopping, a bit of browsing, Google, whatever. Reading, downloading stuff and music and films and all that sort of stuff. Because would that be fair to say that's what the average person uses it for?
Yes, most general use.
Yeah, and internet banking and all that sort of stuff. So what's the attraction for that person then by buying into MadeSafe and its concept?
MadeSafe is still at quite an early stage, despite 10 years of development.
But what's the vision?
The vision is everything you do on the internet now, you'll be able to do on the Safe network. So you'll be able to build anything that you like that you can build now, you can build on the Safe network. The difference being no one else can get to your data without your credentials.
Right.
So everything on the Safe network is encrypted, and it's not just encrypted in one place. It's encrypted into tiny little chunks and spread around the whole network.
Right.
So that means that anybody coming in from outside, they can't find your stuff, let alone decrypt it.
Right. And I think for the sort of more technical people, that bit's really interesting. But
you think about you're at home, in your house. You know, if you've got something that, for whatever, it could be a birthday present for somebody, it could be a secret idea you've had, it could be your private diary. You'll put it in a cupboard, you'll put it somewhere in your house.
Yes.
And only you will get that.
Yes.
At the moment, there isn't a digital way to do that.
Right. That's a really good way of describing it. Yeah.
So what this will give you is your own cupboard, your own house,
right,
where you can put your digital stuff that nobody can get to it, and it isn't. Now, an awful lot of different things go on in different people's houses, some of which are slightly questionable, should we say, for whatever reason.
But we own our identity in our home.
Right. That's right.
We own it
when
in our
you're
home.
At home, you're you, and you're not worrying that there aren't webcams set up all over your house.
Yeah.
Unless you decide to put them there by choice.
No.
And so, and that's basically what the Safe network will give you, that level of privacy, but digitally.
Yeah.
Now, another part to it is that you will be able to, if you choose to, share anything with anyone. So you will be able to say, well, this piece of information. Now, you won't think about it like this because it won't look like this when it's finished. But basically, the way now you could private message somebody on Facebook that only they can see, and you have a private conversation. but then you can say things in public.
Right.
So that will be possible, just as possible on the Safe network. You can say things in public. You can do things privately between two people. You can have stuff that only you know about and nobody else knows is there. I've lost my thread. But so that level of privacy, that level of, what's in your bedside cabinet is up to you, and nobody else should necessarily know unless you choose to let them know.
And that's interesting because that's really important to say to me. That's really important. And actually, when I do go on the internet, and I didn't think I did this until we were just having this conversation, I do think, would I want anyone to see that? I do actually.
That's right.
And I am not true to myself at times because I keep it in a way that just in case it gets out there and it's misinterpreted and it's wrong.
Right. That's right.
Even, we do that with emails.
No, that's right. Yeah. And I mean, any public interaction, you'll probably have the same set of, same thought processes as you have a public interaction on there. Mm-hmm. But there will be this other place that is properly private that nobody else can get to. Mm-hmm. So, whereas, I don't know if I'm going to get a bit technical, but whereas Bitcoin showed the way for something to be permanently owned and uncopyable on the internet, so that if you own a Bitcoin, there is only one Bitcoin and only you own it, and it can be mathematically proven that your Bitcoin address has that Bitcoin and there isn't another copy. You can't just copy it and then there's two. There's only one. That had never been done before Bitcoin. Everything was always infinitely copyable.
Right. What would be an example of copyable then in this world?
Anything at all that is digital, you can copy.
Right.
So if you, and people will, musicians or rock record companies will try and stop you and make you buy your own copy of everything. Mm. But all you're doing is putting a tick in their database that says, yes, that person can download this track. Right. And giving you another copy out of nowhere.
Right.
Books, films, everything like that. The amount of copies of popular films that must be out there on everybody's hard drive is just staggering, because everybody's got their own copy. Well, that's a tremendously inefficient way of running computing in general. If you want to watch the latest Star Wars film, or maybe even an old Star Wars film, you'll probably find there's million upon million upon million a copy on people's private machines of the same thing. And it's exactly the same thing, copied millions and millions and millions of times, so that you have got your copy and they've got their copy.
Right. So can I just ask a question on that? Mm-hmm. And forgive me now if this sounds a bit crazy.
No, go ahead.
So all these people that copy all these movies and do all of this stuff, the person who made that movie and should be getting some kind of royalty for that movie, do they lose out?
Well, it depends. What we do a lot of those copies are legitimate copies that say that you've downloaded from iTunes, and an awful lot more of them are illegitimate copies. That's a separate argument in it, if you leave aside the question of ownership and what have you, and you just look at the efficiency of having a thing that you download a squillion times. Yeah,
but isn't ownership also
But you see, when you come to what MaidSafe will offer, what you will be able to do, presuming you're doing everything legally and above board, is instead of having to download that thing and have it on your machine, which you still might want to do if you want to watch it somewhere where there's no internet signal, but you can have your credentials will allow you to watch that film in a way. I'm not sure if I've gone slightly off topic here. So your credentials will allow you in a way that isn't controlled by other people and telling you yes and no and this and whatnot. It just works. It's there and you can see it.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to understand is that if people just copy things and it isn't legal or the right way, whether it's a legal thing or not.
There's a lot of questions here which will remain to be seen as to how they're going to be answered. A lot of this will come down to, there's going to be probably years of working out ways that actually work. I mean, if you start at Napster, which is when MP3 was invented,
right,
and everybody could then file share, but then the musicians got nothing because there wasn't a legitimate way to do the same thing. There was only that illegitimate way of doing it, or going and buying a CD still. Those were your options when it was first invented. Now we've got Spotify and we've got the iTunes store, all of which have a lot of things wrong with them, but at least it's illegal. Well, you know, and the same with TV and film. Now there is Netflix and there is Amazon Prime. So if you just want to watch that film, you can just sign up, give them a small amount of money and watch it, and that works and it's fine.
Yeah.
There'll always be people who want to go the other road and not pay that whatever fee it is.
And there would be with anything.
And there would be with anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know that is all to be worked out. How do those what mechanisms will come and be built on top of this network? But
Right.
basically, it's providing a different architecture for people to build things on that doesn't rely on you going, "Hello, Mr. Person with a large server, here's my data."
Yes. And what drove, or do you know the answer to this? What drove the guys that came up with MadeSafe and who are working on MadeSafe and have a vision? What is it that drove them to want to do this? What were the things that were bugging them?
As far as I know, and I may not have the whole picture by a long way here, but David Irvine used to build servers and build networks for a living 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
And he was just frustrated by how inefficient the mechanics of it are,
Right.
whilst also worrying about the privacy, freedom and security aspects of it. And so
Who benefits from making it more efficient?
well, everybody really, just it works better.
Is it a speed
So
thing?
yes, I mean, what you want once the network gets big enough, and if everything goes according to plan, what you will notice is that just everything. You know, if you go to a slightly obscure website, particularly if you go to a website and you try and watch a film or a video, a little bit of video, a snippet of video that isn't on YouTube, it's like the buttons don't look like YouTube buttons, and you press the button, and then it thinks about it, and it plays it the first 3 seconds, and then it thinks about it some more, and it's that sort of thing. The only way now to get reliable video on your website is to put it on YouTube or possibly on one of the other large ones like Vimeo or something like that. If you want video that works for everybody to just go and look at, you have to basically, if you're building the website, you say, well, here's all the instructions and the video's over there. And then the person who's looking at it, they don't know that they've been redirected over there, but your website comes from where your website's hosted, except for the video bit, which comes from YouTube.
Right. So being a user
Because that's the only way to get reliable, fast, so that when you press play,
Yeah.
it plays straight away.
Right.
So that's made YouTube this enormous behemoth that it is now. Again, there's pros and cons to that. But
Well, let's concentrate on the pros. You know,
Yeah.
I know there are cons, and there's probably lots of questions you could ask that will come to mind.
but what that would mean is you can have the video bit of your website with the rest of your website, so you're in control of it. You're not. You know, again, it's yours, and
yours
you can
and
choose
own
to share it.
Yeah, but just on that point of efficiency, as a user, if it sounds to me like it's about taking all these layers away, and that can be for security reasons and efficiency reasons as well. So as a user, you know, if I'm using MadeSafe now and the vision's there and it's all out there, am I finding things more quickly? Is it?
It'll just be built differently, so it will make new things possible. One thing is, in parts of the world where things aren't as free as they are here, they won't be able to switch bits of it off. So if you're in the wrong country now, bits of Facebook just doesn't work. You have to go, you have to work round the edges to get to Facebook. If somebody builds something like Facebook on MadeSafe, now a lot of the reasons that Facebook's where it is are driven by the architecture that is underneath it, which is the internet that we all use today. So I'd be surprised if something got that big and powerful built on the safe network, because there just isn't the need. But if somebody was to build something on there that had a large amount of appeal, it couldn't be blocked in the same way.
Right.
So, I mean, you hear on the news sometimes when there's a revolution in a country, they'll switch off Twitter. And Twitter just doesn't work in that country. Because they know where Twitter comes from, and they can just block the stream of data that's coming from Twitter.
Right.
On all of the entry points into their country. MadeSafe is fundamentally different because it doesn't. You're not all drinking from the same pipe, if you like. It's lots of machines all joined together, so there's nothing to block because
Right.
data's going in all different directions between all the machines that are on the network.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where they are in physical space. It's a global network built across what is the internet that's built now.
So is the vision that it works alongside this internet and people choose to use it, or is it to replace the
I think
internet?
I mean, again, this is where I'm not particularly strong on my answer because I don't know. This is my own surmise.
But an opinion.
What will happen, I would guess, is that things that are most important and most security, where security is most key. So, things like private communications, particularly for high stakes of things, once it's been proven. In fact, there's a test net for MadeSafe that came out last week that's got the first ever email program in it, which means that you've heard about Hillary Clinton's email trying to have her own private server.
Yeah.
That was so that she wasn't on Yahoo or Google or whatever.
Right.
And she wasn't on the government ones either because she was worried about those getting hacked. Now, what she ended up doing is making one that got hacked anyway.
Yes.
As we all now
Yeah.
know. But in this test network, there is another email that literally isn't hosted anywhere. There's nothing to hack because it's on. So it will be, once it's proven and it's actually out there, it will be, by all current today's hacking techniques, totally unhackable. Now, that's not to say that somebody clever won't work out a way later down the line, but at the moment, nothing that people will use to hack an email server now would work with MadeSafe. It was all,
Yeah.
they're all the wrong methods. It's the wrong sort of nut to try and crack.
Yeah.
Because it is so those are the sorts of things that will go there first. Secure data. The other thing about it is the security of the data. So I don't know if you've ever had a file that you've had stored in Dropbox or on Apple's thing or something, and it's got deleted or it's got corrupted and it's gone. You can't get it back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, particularly people who were early people to cloud storage and backed up their whole photo library. Well, in one of those, because you're moving it around on the internet from this one to that one to this one, if you haven't got a local backup and something goes wrong, you can lose, what could be a beloved, cherished photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be some important document. Or it could just be inconveniently what you've been working on all week at work.
Mm-hmm.
And something goes wrong and it is accidentally deleted or corrupted and you haven't got what you had. It's just not secure enough. This doesn't happen so much day to day now, but there's still a lot of issues with archived data, things that are, people have put on an electronic shelf and then left for 5 years.
And then
And then when they come back, they can't find
Yeah.
it, or where it's hosted is gone, or it's got the data's been hosed and is not accessible anymore, or it's got just corrupted and half of it's gobbledygook. Those sorts of issues, as time goes on and more of what we do moves online, it's more and more important that the old stuff still is there and still works.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also then your day-to-day data as well. On the Safe network, all of the bits of your data are kept 4 times minimum. So there's always 4 copies of every little chunk of data, minimum. Now, your machine might be on. Why 4? Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask the developers why they pick 4. But presumably, they have to anticipate how many machines are on the network will suddenly get turned off.
Right.
And other ones coming online.
Yeah.
If your machine comes offline and isn't connected to the network anymore, all the data that was in your machine, the network itself works out all them bits of data. I know I've got one there, but that one's disappeared, so I'll write another one over there.
Right.
So it gives you data security, so that it, and again, because it's not geographic, it's not all of the, if a nuclear bomb went off in the middle of wherever Google keep their server farms, they'd be hard pushed to make sure every last little bit of data was okay if they wiped out that much of their network all in one fell swoop. Now, probably it would be okay just because Google is so big and they've probably got backup on backup. Most more normal people with smaller amounts of stuff, you know, if your house burnt down tomorrow, God forbid, anything that you had in your computer may well have disappeared and you'd never get it back because you can, I mean, it doesn't have to be your house burning down. That's if you've got like a separate backup drive system or something like Apple's Time Machine or something like that. You know, you've got one backing up the other. They're usually still in the same room. So if your house flooded or something, and
Can you just come up with something a bit
dead,
nicer than that? You've burnt my house and you've flooded it now.
I'm sorry. In case of some calamity.
Right, so I suppose what attracts me to this whole idea of this new idea, because it's a new idea, isn't it? Although it's probably been
It's been 10 years in development, but it's new
it's an
to
idea
being,
still in development.
Yes.
Is because I love that word freedom, and from what you've been saying today and what I've listened to on YouTube myself, that it's kind of empowering the individual again to own and have this freedom. So as a user, if it was out there now and I have a choice to either go down that route of MaidSafe, or I just think, well, I'm not that bothered, I'm all right, I'm used to this. What is the major attraction? Because there's an awful lot of ignorance out there.
Yeah. It's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know, Google Mail is very convenient. I use it myself. If you're not trying to hide
So does it mean
anything,
we don't use Google?
It depends if Google decide to build any services on top of the Safe network. At the moment, they don't. So,
would it be in their interest to do that? Surely.
Again, that's arguable. If they can come up with a business model that makes it make sense for them, then yes. And I don't know what Google's official stance is. I know that quite a lot of Google employees are very interested in following what's happening with the development.
Because they can see what goes on in Google.
That's right, and they're watching it very closely. Now, I don't know what Google's official stance is at the moment. It's too early for anybody to build anything. You know, we're right at the very beginning. Again, if you compare it to the normal, no one's built Netscape yet. If you remember back to your web browsers that were very early on.
Right.
We're pre-Netscape as far as this new network is concerned. There is a safe browser coming. At the moment, you sort of have to put a few hacks together to get an ordinary web browser to be able to view what's happening on the safe network. So it's a little bit technical. I haven't tried the alpha release, so I don't know if it's still exactly the same. But you certainly had to do a little bit of technical jiggery pokery in the background in order to be able to get to view what you were looking at and what's on this new network. Now, I don't know if you remember, I was at the age of kids' TV in the early 90s.
I couldn't possibly remember.
And you used to have them try and make it sound fun and list this URL, whereas you just say just go to bbc.co.uk/ whatever my TV program's called. Well, then it was http // this, that and the other. I mean, it's far more, you wouldn't be able to ever remember it. You'd have to write down this great long list of everything, and then you'd have to go and type that in to get it to come up.
Yeah.
Now, just through it being there and lots of people wanted to use it, everything's been simplified and simplified.
Linked and all that sort of stuff.
So that's where we'll end up. And it's going to be a gradual process. I fear that an awful lot of people are going to be driven there out of desperation because of driven to using things that are on the safe network out of desperation because their old systems get hacked, get compromised.
Right. So you fear that the pain has got to get worse.
That's right. I think that, and I think that is partially inevitable.
Yeah, because pain's the biggest driver for change and movement.
That's right.
And that's where I'm an advocate.
It's going to take businesses going under because all of their
and that's the bit that just concerns me at the moment. It's that why do I need to bother?
Yeah.
Well,
you see, anything that, and the other thing that is arguable about how much it will change, and I think MaidSafe has got a bit of a head start on. People are trying to build things that aren't free because everybody, if it's the thing now is if it's free, you're the product. So all Google services are free because your details are then you are advertised to. Advertising, so Google sell you as a user to the advertisers and say we know this much about this group of people of which you're one of. They don't tell them that they're your individual name and address, but it can get fairly close to be targeted for any adverts. Facebook do exactly the same thing. So you are the product that's being sold from the company's point of view. They want lots of people using it who for free because that gives them what they can sell to make money. So other people are trying to build different projects going on that require you to pay for it, even if it's only a very small amount, so that you don't have to have, so that they can then keep your data secure.
Right.
Now, a large part of the problem with doing that is you've only got whoever's doing it's word for it that they're not just going to make you pay and then sell your data anyway.
But if they've not got this MaidSafe concept on
So
their agenda,
I'm talking now about people on the traditional internet.
That's what I mean. If they haven't got that concept, then
now what MaidSafe will allow them to do is
difference.
it will give you will be able to do more than just take their word for it that your data isn't being sold, because you're not giving them your data. So you'll be able to go and use your email in MaidSafe, and you know Google aren't reading all your emails, which they do.
But how do you convince people that MaidSafe makes it safe? Because you've talked quite technically, and some of it I haven't grasped. No, it's okay, and I'm sure that many people who watch are more familiar. So for me, and I could question you all day long on a lot of it, and I won't do that because it's not productive use of time. But you see, MaidSafe, they wouldn't convince me that they're any different to the internet, because they might go and explain all the stuff you did, but I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I'm not interested.
What will prove that is that the first people to go there are the people where the stakes are high enough. So people who a hack is catastrophic will go and put their stuff in the safe network because it can't be hacked.
Right.
And then what will give you as a casual consumer, the message,
their experience will be a good one.
You never hear of a safe.
Yeah.
And
they
news reports
in
a few years' time, if everything goes and no alternative comes out, will say, well, they were still using old technology, they hadn't moved their stuff to the safe network, they've got hacked. Mm-hmm. And that's enough normally to make people think, oh, I better move mine to something. No, it won't move everybody. Some people still won't care.
Will it be challenging because it's good news doesn't travel fast?
Quite possibly. But one of the aims of the people who are building it is to make it just better and simpler and easy to use. So that you don't, all of the technical stuff I've talked about, you don't need to know any of that. All you need to know is there's another alternative out there, and it's faster, it's better. Maybe one thing that drives everybody there is there just aren't any adverts. And just losing the adverts will be enough to drive one segment of the population to go there instead of. Because
this is going to be a benefit.
That's right. So the benefit is, if your machine is online and connected to the network, it's being useful to the network, and therefore that is providing some value back to the network that is sort of paying your way. Just by having your computer, and in the future maybe your phone or whatever, every time it's on, it's you say, well, 20% of my phone can I'll give to the network, and all your decision might be something. I mean, I'm hypothesizing here. It might not end up like this, but I can see a possibility where your decision is a slider of how much of my phone do I give to the network to get more stuff. Now, the more you give, the slower your phone is and the quicker the battery dies. But if you really want to do something that takes quite a lot of oomph from the network side, then you can probably put up with that for a day or two. And then when you finish doing that, then you go, well, I don't want to give so much now, I'll scale it back. So you'll move that slider back the other way, and then you get more battery life out of your phone, and it's faster. And that's the only decision you'd have to make. The network, as a result of you going, yeah, I'll turn it up a bit for now and I'll put up with a slow phone and a not so good battery, from the network's point of view, that gives it more resources, which it runs on. So that will provide it with the power, the computing power, the storage that it needs to provide these services to everybody. So you've got a method of paying for it without having to actually reach into your pocket and give them any form of money. You can just give them, you can say, yeah, I'm using my computer, but you can use some of it as well.
Right. Okay.
And then, as I say, if you want to use a lot of it, you can turn. Now, in extreme examples where you want to do something that's ridiculously network powered, then you may have to get into a position where you give them some money of some description, be that Bitcoin or Safecoin or whatever. But that's a kind of side issue. That's only at the extremes. Normal casual users probably never have to do that. It's enough for you to give your device's network resources. So, and then you'll have a decision when you buy your next device. Okay, well, how much network stuff do I use? Do I want it to be on quite a lot and give the network quite a lot of resources? So therefore I buy a more expensive phone in the first place. Or am I only got really light use, hardly ever want to do anything, can be not very much of my resources at all I can give to the network because I don't want to use very much, then I can buy a really cheap phone. So what you give then is actually in the value of the hardware you're buying rather than being advertised to or paying them money or anything like that.
And that actually is a better way to sell it, and it's a fairer way, isn't it?
That's right. So I think just people being able to do it like that will drive a lot of people there because you haven't got the advertising, you haven't got the
So I'm getting what I'm getting now from I'm really trying to listen now and try and understand. What I'm getting is that there's a bit more integrity with this whole.
Yes, that's a very good
this
word.
Whole venture.
That's what I like about it.
Yeah, the integrity and honesty, and it's more transparent.
Yeah.
Because you're right. If I go in as a consumer, will go in and buy something, I have absolutely no idea. I just go the white one.
Yeah.
You know, and you could say that's a girly thing, and we do that, but we do it because we're baffled by the nonsense that's almost dishonest. Even though I'm not saying that God bless the salesperson who's trying their best to do what they do, but this is what it does my head in about anything technical, is that I just want to know what I need.
Yeah.
This is what I want to be able to say that to you.
And that's, I think,
and if you tell me MaidSafe makes that possible,
it makes it more possible. I mean,
no,
it's
I don't mean 100%.
dependent, yeah.
I don't mean 100% bulletproof. But if it takes me towards the more narrow path of less destruction, then I'm one of your customers. Do you see what I mean? And it's how, and that's great. But it's how you get that out there, and do you see what I mean?
And I think I think
you need the right people to get into this.
Yes, you do. But if you're, for I like it. It chimes well with me because if you build something that is just inarguably better and functions as it's supposed to and doesn't fall over and hasn't got all sorts of compromises built in, then the market will often do the rest. Again, another example might be, look at Apple a few years ago. They start making phones that on the surface of it are fantastically expensive, but the market finds a way to pay for them because people want them, because they're beautifully designed, they're very reliable, and they do what people want them to do. Again, argument either way as to whether that's still the case now.
Yeah.
But that's how they got to where
it's
they are
a
now.
good bit of time in that.
That's it, because they don't rely on selling you out your details and advertising. They rely on hardware sales for their income.
Right, that's interesting. That's
along with the iTunes store as well, which doesn't do them any harm.
Doesn't do any harm. No.
But their primary business is selling phones, and the way they've got there is by making a phone that's just better than anybody else's phone that they made.
Yeah.
Again, other phones will be better than them on this level or that level, but as a package, it's the best of all possible worlds. One of which worlds is sort of just reliability and how they put it together and whatnot.
And it's a bit of that. It does what it says on the tin stuff.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I know what that means.
I think it's possibly less true now, but what Steve Jobs used to get up on stage and say is, it just works, and it did in the vast majority of cases. Not everything, but most of it just worked, which is what people wanted.
But there was a trust there wasn't there?
That's it. But because they consistently made things that did what they said it did, then people trusted them. Again, you're only talking shades of grey, and not all of it always works. But in general, they were more right than they were wrong about it just works, and that's how they got to where they are today.
Yeah.
So building a quality product that just doesn't have any compromises, wriggles, bits that fall off, flaky bits that go wrong, goes along. It doesn't do all the work, but I feel it goes a long way to being what people come to rely on.
So, but wouldn't that have been the intention of the internet designer in the first place?
Well, yes. If you talk to Tim Berners-Lee, who was the father of the internet, has been called, he's not very happy with how it's ended up now.
Yeah.
And he's been out to. He was at a conference the other week that was all about decentralising the internet again, to get it so that, because the original thing was that every computer could talk to every other computer. The server was a necessary thing because that didn't work very well because all the computers were so slow, and then has grown into all these massive corporations.
So was it a technical thing that has got this kind of out of hand, it being a server in the design, or is it actually some other brains that have have added bits on to make this a little bit more
I would
corrupt,
guess
if that's the right word. I
would guess it's a mixture of all sorts.
And does that really
some
matter?
of it's just an awful lot of the things that are done to start with are done just because that's a way to do something that's never been done before. And so, when Google first came up with a search engine, all they were worried about was making a better search engine. Now, if you're worried about your own data privacy, don't use Google, because they don't. They're quite transparent about, we'll use your data for all these umpteen reasons, but all you can choose is like it or lump it, or don't use it at all.
Well, there is that. But you see, when you have conversations, I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but all of a sudden I'm hearing things like, Google, they know everything about you. Are they the ones that are running the world? Are they going to be managing Donald Trump? All that sort of stuff. And it's that, is it just that they've had this intelligence to do so, or is there something that isn't quite? It hasn't got that integrity.
It's the old argument that you shouldn't have a benevolent dictator,
right?
Because they can be replaced by a not benevolent dictator, and just because he's benevolent doesn't mean that you make him the dictator.
Yeah.
Because if that's the person who's in control of everything, once he's not there anymore and somebody else is, if they've got too much power,
that's right,
then they'll abuse it. Now, it may be that the people who are in charge now, no problem at all.
Yeah.
And for as long as they're in charge, but if you've created the position with all that power,
somebody else will have a different idea.
If somebody else then comes in and takes that position, they've got all that power, and that could be a big problem.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the things have ended up the way they are more by accident than design.
That's right. No, not bad intention. Yeah.
But we've ended up with too few people having too much power, and now we're all on very dodgy ground because who knows.
And at the end of the day, some people are making a hell of a lot of money.
Yes.
And it just goes back to, we could talk about that one forever as well.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing about MaidSafe is a company at the moment, but their intention is not to make money. So they're almost writing themselves out of the future. Once it's all set up and working, they're kind of writing themselves out of the equation. They want this to, once it works and it goes, they just want it to go on its own without having people, because the network will, or should, almost completely maintain itself.
Yeah. It's almost like they've removed the ego from all of this, and it's about doing the right thing and helping the people to use this, and because it's a world we live in, it's a digital world, and to use it safely and enjoy it, and also to benefit. You get your birthright. You get what you deserve and what you are owed. I like that concept. I did watch the video. I'm not great on YouTube myself, you know that, and I don't have patience with it. But I did get the impression that the guy with the blonde hair, Scottish gentleman,
There's two Scottish gentlemen.
Yeah, I know. I was going to call them the Reclaimers. But I was listening to him, and it was, I don't know, you know. I like to think I'm intuitive, but I can be easily fooled. But I did get the impression that this is just somebody that just wants to try and create something that's good for the good of the people. He didn't look like somebody, or didn't sound like somebody that's just out there, unless he's a wolf in lamb's clothing, which people can be as well. But it seemed to be that has a passion for
David
this.
Irvine, when he'd finished his project making this server network a very long time ago, he then took a couple of years out, and most of his time was spent on lifeboats as a volunteer lifeboat person. So that tells you something.
It sounds like this is there's somebody that has a desire to do good in the world and wants to get something out there.
I mean,
and
I can't.
None of us never know, but we have to have some trust in some people, because there's an awful lot of people out there that don't have that. and I'm looking for those winners personally. So, and that's why I decided that I would sit here with you and ask these questions on something that I was really hoping that is the truth.
Yeah.
And this is a trust thing, and we can, we can, when we hear Made Safe, we can think, Made Safe, it's real and it's good.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how much of a household name Made Safe will be, because it's so low down. I don't know if you're familiar with the term TCP/IP, but there's no reason why you should be. That's how the internet works, but nobody talks about it because it doesn't matter. The internet works.
Yeah.
What matters is what you interact with on top of it.
Yeah.
So you might hear, if you're not technical, you might not hear that much about Made Safe and the Safe network.
But I think
because
that's actually
what you'll hear about is the things that are built on top of it.
Yeah.
But as you say, I was very.
But why wouldn't you hear about that? Because it's simple, as in Made Safe.
It's a simple phrase. It explains a very complex and difficult.
Of course it does. But when you first shared Bitcoin with me, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What? Don't get it. Don't want to know. I'm scared of this. When I saw the words Made Safe, I thought, that's just so transparent. So it's got to be something good, or something that I'm not going to be embarrassed about as much as I was when I first heard Bitcoin. I'm getting less embarrassed now, by the way, because I don't care anymore. I'll just go with it. But do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe, because it's not big and out there yet, but this is the start of their journey, isn't it? As you said,
But you used the word integrity earlier, and
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I think that makes perfect sense. It's a very good match of the word with what they're trying to do.
Yes.
And when you've got a foundation with integrity, then what you build on top of it can have integrity.
Yeah.
If you're trying to build on fly by night, even stuff that's been put there with good intentions, I know from the little bit of developing I've done myself, which isn't very much, but I've done enough to know you have to be careful what you choose to build with, because if you pick the wrong thing and it gets neglected, then you'll find in a year's time it doesn't work, because nobody is then. Now, a lot of time somebody's made it with perfectly good intentions, but they've done their thing, they've got it working now, and then that's it. And then what that's built on has moved on, and then their thing doesn't work anymore. And but it's because that's broken, but that person's gone and doing something completely different now. So you're on your own, and if it's broke, it's broke, and that's that. Again, it's having something that is got some air of permanence about it, and it goes deep enough and is comprehensive enough to build on as a foundation to build things that will last. Yeah. Because everything on the internet nowadays is so transient.
Yeah.
It comes and it goes.
Yeah. Well, I just love the fact that it seems like an honest conversation, and there are still people out there that want to make the world a better place. And
it's nice when you find them, isn't it?
It is nice, and and a lot of people can talk a good game, but I don't know. Some people really talk to the heart, and I really do wish these guys well, and I hope it is out there for us, so that we can enjoy.
I mean, they're in their alpha release at the moment, which is a very limited version of it that's out there, but it is actually there, and it's alive, and it's active, and it works. It's not just a test. And so they're still doing test networks with more levels of detail in it, and as these things are tested, then they'll be added to the thing, and they're just going to keep going now, because there's enough there that exists for them to build out. And
something, it's some people might disagree, but it's not just about the money. It sounds like this is a dream, a vision, and really when someone's at the top of the tree leading that, who has that mindset, it usually is a good thing, and other people do benefit. So, any questions out there?
None from me, thanks.
I think that's a good place to end.
Think so?
On that note,